Hi, everybody. It's great to be with you again this third Friday of November. Thanks to all of you for being here, too. We were talking earlier about how so many of us have started getting ready for the Thanksgiving holiday. So really appreciate you being here today with us. Know that this is a program, as some of you know, that is co-sponsored by the Big Bend Coalition Against Human Trafficking, which is our local anti-trafficking networking entity. BBCAT has been around for a number of years now, and here's what we do. We do meet quarterly. It's a great time to network, and we've been doing that online since COVID. Hopefully we'll be in each other's presence soon. Everyone is welcome, not just people who do this work as part of their professional obligations or adventures here. We have many different people from many walks. Sometimes I remember one meeting, a woman came and said, I just want to learn more about what to do. I just am a member of the community. If you want to join us, Kelly Doherty is the person to contact. Her info is up here. She's with the U.S. Attorney's Office. I also have the honor of co-hosting, or I'm sorry, as being the co-chair of the BBCAT, and really happy to do that. I know that what we're doing as ever is figuring out how we can all work together to build trust and to assist survivors so that they can come forward for support. It's something that whether you're on the justice system side or the nonprofit side or education community, whatever you are, it's so important for people to know that we're all out here and we're all here to build a community of trust for survivors to be able to come forward if they wish. All right, next slide, please. This is what we do at STAC. We do this work really in two ways. One is we do provide service and support to all trafficking survivors, sex and labor trafficking, all ages, all immigration status. And we do that in collaboration, which you're going to hear about more today from my colleague, Graciela Marquina. Her case management skills and her work with survivors is just so important and has helped many people. We also do this work to do our outreach beyond where we are in Leon County. Very often our rural areas are forgotten, and we've got to do much more, all of us do, I believe, to really reach out to underserved areas and not forget that human trafficking is a reality in our rural parts of our state. We do public awareness, and I'll tell you, it's not just public awareness. We really are working hard to catalyze action and move beyond awareness. So that's another one of our pieces. And we do a lot of training too that's tailored to specific entities and agencies. So know that we do all that as well. And there are places on our website which you'll get in a sec that you can click on, and we can help you if you're interested in any of that kind of training. So here's some of the stuff you'll find. As mentioned, here's our website, surviveandthriveadvocacy.org. Know that we've got posters, which we worked on with our great partner, the International Rescue Committee. Those are online, as well as we could get you hard copies of those if you're interested. We have a partner toolkit, and know that all of our services and support are always free of charge. Here's an example of one of the pieces we pulled together at the beginning of the pandemic, really in part because we were all isolated and we were all in one, kind of separated from one another. We wanted to do a lot of outreach and let people know that we are a resource for the community. So here's one of our posters. Any of this is downloadable, and we really encourage all of you, especially those of you who, I see we have quite a few people from our local area. Please feel free to always join in with us and download these social media tools. Here are our presenters today, and I want to take a moment now and ask everyone if they could go ahead and unmute yourselves or get on camera, because what we're going to do is I want to frame up our program today and also introduce to you our fantastic expert panel this afternoon. You see that the whole theme of this presentation and this program today is about working in collaboration. And we know that that really is truly the only way any of us can do our work. We have so many different needs that are presented by survivors of human trafficking. We have people who come to us of various ages, of various experience, of various levels of safety or need for safety, trauma in their backgrounds, et cetera. And the only way really we can do this work in a world of resources that are getting even more challenging to put together is to do it together. And when we do that, we know that it is just a virtuous circle of support that that happens for survivors. At the same time, we know we've got a lot of challenges. So today's program is going to be one that echoes a little bit what we did last month, where we had a panel of experts. And we actually last month didn't even have a PowerPoint. We're going to have some PowerPoint slides to show you today, but they're really only to walk through scenarios. We have 3 scenarios that we've worked on to create for you. And each one of our panelists are going to discuss how they would, what they would do, how they would support the particular survivor we're talking about, how they would reach out to other partners who aren't on this call or aren't on this webinar, who they would reach out to, how they would work, how they would carry on. So, so you can see we've got a nice mix of people, and we have. I wish we could have 6 more, 16 more people, because we know that, again, so many in our community are important to getting this work done. So what I'd like to do now is just introduce each person by title and ask that person to just say, whatever you want to do to introduce yourself, and also give a little bit of information about yourselves in terms of why this particular issue, the support of sex and labor trafficking survivors, is important to you. So let's start out with Vania Aguilar, who is the program manager for the Center for the Advancement of Human Rights here at Florida State University in Tallahassee. Welcome, Vania, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Robin, and thank you for everyone who organized this particular program. Thank you, everyone, for participating and trying to access and gain more information on this topic. At the Center for the Advancement of Human Rights, we were contacted many years ago, to be exact in 2002, to start looking at this issue. At that time, there were no Florida laws. Graciela and of course Robin were on the team of professionals that were very involved in this particular case. We produced reports. We got the opportunity to interview victims and look at the victim perspective, their stories, more specifically, trying to gain information as much as possible to make this, provide information on a victim-centered approach. I also have been in the past part of the Survive and Thrive Advocacy Center as a board member. Right now I serve on one of the committees. I'm part of the Big Bend Coalition of Human Trafficking, co-chairing the Survivor Support Group. It's very important for us to not only educate everyone in this area. There is such a need for not just the organizations, not just the agency, but everyone. It takes, as we are meeting today, it takes a whole village to assist, to educate, to make a difference. And that is why it's very important to me to take part in as many trainings, in as many awareness, in assisting victims of human trafficking directly, which we have done at the center, both sex and labor trafficking victims.
Thank you, Vania. And it really has been a journey, almost 20 years of working together. It's great to be with you today. Justin Barfield is the Outreach and Development Director at CCYS, or Capital City Youth Services, here in Tallahassee, Leon County. Justin, do you want to tell us a little bit more about what you do and why this issue is important to you?
Yeah, thanks, Robin. As she said, I'm Justin. I'm with Capital City Youth Services, CCYS, up here in Tallahassee or down here, depending upon where you're from. I see some Kentucky folks. So welcome all who are tuning in. CCYS serves and promotes healthy development of youth and families. So we have a continuum of services that serve ages 6 through 24. We have an emergency shelter program, non-residential counseling program, an early intervention behavioral program called SNAP. We have a street outreach program called Going Places, and we also operate a drop-in center for runaway, at-risk, and homeless youth to come get a hot meal, a hot shower, access to computers, case management, referral services. And we have several other programs, but this is really important to me because where I serve is kind of at this intersection, and I move between upper management, executive tasks at times, working with the board and board of directors, and get the privilege to speak with commissioners and such. But I also serve day to day front lines. Right now I'm sitting in the conference room in the back of our drop-in center. And so I get the privilege to work with youth directly. And I also get the privilege to sit at the table with some people who are trying to figure out how to address trafficking in our area. I'll say that I'm not an expert. I'm just here to bear witness and to share their stories and their testimony, and hopefully find some ways to serve more effectively. I'm finding that sometimes the best way to help a survivor who is experiencing trafficking and surviving during the trafficking event is to just give them a safe place to be present and to ask questions and to speak their truth. So I'm honored to be able to serve in that capacity.
Thank you so much, Justin. And it has been great to know you and work with you here. Thank you. Jair Clark, you are wearing two hats with us today. You're both a child protective investigator and a human trafficking specialist with Florida's Department of Children and Families. And you're also working with PACE Center for Girls as a PACE Reach therapist. Great to see you again. And will you talk a little bit about what you do and why this issue is important to you?
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity, Robin. I'm Jair. I currently work, as she said, with both Department of Children and Families, commonly known as DCF here in Florida, and PACE Center for Girls, which is a school which has both the academic side and the social services side across the state of Florida and also in Georgia now, which is super exciting. So the way these jobs tend to come together for my ultimate passion, which is women and children, and also just our youth in general, whether that's they identify as something other than female, then we serve all people, especially with the Department of Children and Families. So I have been with the department since 2014. I have been serving as the trafficking specialist since about 2017 full-time. We cover, for our circuits, it's 2 and 14, which is from Bay County, the Panama City area, down to Jefferson. Just working with our youth, we have seen that it may not always come in under the maltreatment of human trafficking. We see a lot of physical abuse, neglect, and we know these are trauma is a baseline in regards to being a victim or a survivor of trafficking. So we try to address those needs and get the children safe, get their families safe if we can, to just work with those families and then ensure that we're meeting their needs as best as we can across the state.
Great. Thank you so much, Jair. It's wonderful to have you with us today. All right, Charlie Jackson, one of our newest partners. We're so thrilled to be working with you, who's the regional advocate with Whole Child Leon, which is the umbrella agency for our local Open Doors Outreach Network program. So Charlie, welcome. It's great to see you and to know you and to be working with you. So tell us a little bit about you, introduce yourself, and let us know why this issue is important to you.
Sure, thank you. And first, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today and being a part of this very, very important conversation. Like Robin said, my name is Charlie Jackson, and I serve as the regional advocate for Whole Child Leon, who is now a provider of the Open Doors Outreach Network, serving the Big Bend area. And as a member of the outreach team, we work with young victims of sex trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation. And I want to say this, I was thinking about just our theme, this topic about it takes a village. And I think about our mission and our goal at Whole Child Leon, which is to build a community where everyone is working together to make sure children thrive. And that is exactly the premise of It Takes a Village. And so I'm just so grateful that all of us are here today, that we are all, honestly, we're all sharing a central goal, which is to serve as a catalyst for change in our community regarding this issue. So I just want to thank each one of you for being here today. And thank you to those who are joining us. When I think of what we do, I often don't feel like I have enough time, and I think Jair has witnessed that. I can kind of take over when I talk about our program in Open Doors. But Open Doors, like I said, we serve the Big Bend area, and the 8 counties we cover include Leon, Wakulla, Jefferson, Gadsden, Madison, Taylor, Franklin, and Liberty counties. And what we do is we provide wraparound services and supports for children and young adults ages 10 to 25 who are suspected or verified victims of sex trafficking. And we are able to do this throughout a statewide network of service providers. And what that means is that if a survivor is receiving services from Open Doors here in Tallahassee and they relocate to another area of the state where there's an Open Doors program, that provider can pick up where we left off and continue providing consistent services for that survivor. So I'm going to pause because, like I said, I can talk about our services, but we're going to go into further detail when we talk about the different scenarios. So once again, thank you all for joining us and being a part of this conversation.
Thank you, Charlie. It's wonderful for you to be with us and to be collaborating with you on this local level too. We're so grateful to you and to Whole Child Leon and to Courtney for taking this on. Looking forward to working with you throughout the years here. Next, we actually have 2 more presenters. Graciela Marquina, I'd like to ask you, and then David Oliver, who is not listed here but is presenting today, will have you kind of finish us out. But Graciela, would you mind introducing yourself and let us know who you are, what you do, and why this issue is important?
Absolutely. I'm sorry. So my name is Graciela Marquina. I am the community service advocate. And what basically I do is talk to victims and survivors and people at risk or being trafficked. And between the client and I design a kind of like a case plan or something that will meet their needs. And everyone is different. Everyone has different needs. I'm very excited actually because I see all sorts of names and people that joining here. And Jennifer Williams, for example, is the overdose prevention specialist, and we need you. And we need, Connie Davis, and I'm seeing all these names and trying to, how can we work together? We cannot do it without you guys, without any, because we, the agencies, don't have everything. We don't have a shelter, we don't have attorneys, but we do connect with a shelter or an attorney, or with Vania, with Charlie, with Justin. There is no way that we can work without any of you, any of the ones that are listening right now, the training. So that's what we do. We connect our clients with services. And we will be talking about trauma-informed care and, specifically being centered for our clients. That's what we're talking about, that everyone needs something different and we need to meet where they are and what, they need to do. So I don't want to take more of David's time, so.
Thank you. Thank you, Graciela. I'm so glad you're with us on this panel today, especially. I've seen you do your work and you're outstanding. And it is it's really an honor to be working to assist survivors with you. And David Oliver, and we've got the IRC logo, David. So my bad, I don't have you listed as a presenter, but we know you're here. So David Oliver is the Deputy Director for IRC Florida. We started working together with IRC intensively just about over 3 years ago, and are so grateful to you and to the team here in Tallahassee. I know you're in Miami, but it feels like you're here because we do work so closely. So hi, David, and please forgive me for not having you listed as a presenter here.
Hi, Robin. Hello, everybody. It is no problem at all. I am honestly just really honored to be included in this fantastic panel of true experts. As Robin said, I'm actually Miami based. So, just keep that in mind as we talk about the Tallahassee specific resources. But again, I'm honored to be here, and I just want to echo the theme of It Takes a Village. I think every other panelist has said something to that effect, and it's so very true. We just really recognize that no one person, no one organization can tackle this alone. It is way too complex. The scope and scale of it is way too large. And I'm just very grateful for all of the partnerships that IRC has in Tallahassee, as well as in the state of Florida. So an introduction for myself. I'm David Oliver, Deputy Director of the IRC for Florida. We have 2 offices, one in Tallahassee and one in Miami. We have a range of programs. We have refugee resettlement programming in Tallahassee, as well as anti-human trafficking work. In our Miami office, we have a focus on anti-trafficking work as well, and also we serve unaccompanied children. And really, my background is I've been with the IRC for close to 15 years and working largely in the Atlanta office there with wearing an economic empowerment hat. So helping to find refugees, asylees, and other populations employment, helping them to climb their career ladder. And when I took this position here that's in Florida, I was, admittedly not the most well-versed in all of the caveats and nuances and complexities of human trafficking. And so in the last few years, I've really learned a lot, and there's so much more to learn. It's very humbling, and it really shows the complexity of what we're up against, and also the need for community education. And these panel events and webinar presentations are so very important, just to make sure that all community members, all organizations and institutions are really aware and well educated on these issues and how to identify potential victims and how to identify red flags. So I think I'll leave it at that. And thank you very much again for having me.
Thank you, David. And also David and IRC was instrumental in really helping STACK to grow, and as it applied for a federal grant, which we have been partners on now for 3 years, and will always be grateful to you and hopefully continue that work together. I'm going to share my screen and let you all know a little bit about what we're going to do now. We're going to start with the first of 3 scenarios. We've timed it to be able to get through, we hope, all 3. Each one of these scenarios will have facts that will allow a number of our panelists to weigh in and say, this is what we would do, this is what our service is, could provide, this is where I might hit a brick wall that I've hit before and figured out how to get around. But these are scenarios we want you to know are based on stories of survivors that we've assisted, as well as tailored to this learning program today. All right, Vania, would you like to kick us off?
Absolutely, Robin. Thank you. So I'll start by reading off the scenario. This is John Claude's story. I am 14 and I have been working for a family in the US for 2 years. I clean the house and I take care of other chores. They never pay me. I need money to send to my family because they are very poor. I work over 16 hours a day. The man in the family keeps my important papers in a safe, and it is very hard for me to leave the house. They have threatened to send me home to Haiti if I don't do what they want. I feel sick with terrible headaches, and I can't eat. I am afraid because the older boy in the family touches my private parts, and I cannot stop him. When I told him to stop, he said he will throw me out on the streets and I would not have a place to live. My employer tells me to stop imagining that I am sick and that I am lying so that I can get out of doing my work. They will not take me to the doctor. Okay, so we've had a similar case in the past. So let's start out with discussing, well, is this labor trafficking? Is this sex trafficking? Lots of red flags and indicators here. Right off by not asking any more questions based on the red flags, and we'll discuss a little bit of why I think it's labor trafficking. I see in the chat box, Joanne, thank you. She says definitely labor trafficking. And Joanne, I will definitely agree with you. We have this 14-year-old, has been with the family since he was 12, has been working. At 14, school it's mandatory, right? So this child is not in school. Parents are only mentioned to say that they're very poor and he needed to send money home. Documents. Okay, so just the fact that this boy is working 16 hours a day, red flag. Not going to school, another red flag. Papers. He's not allowed or have access to have papers at his fingertips. Another red flag, right? Someone is keeping them, or the employer in this case. We know he's from a different country. We know that they are threatening to send him back home, meaning threats of deportation probably, which we see a lot in cases of human trafficking. We also see that he's not free to go out of the house. This is very hard for me to leave. And someone else mentioned, both, not only labor trafficking, but sex trafficking too. And let's discuss that. He doesn't have access to a doctor. They won't take him to a doctor. And it looks like this older boy, at this point, we don't know how old this boy is. The older boy is touching his private parts. And at this point, maybe we need to question a little bit more. Okay, is this sexual abuse? Is the condition for this boy, what authority does this boy have to determine whether this child is going to be thrown out on the street? Is this sexual conduct that this older boy has towards John Claude? Is it a condition for him to stay in the house? And if so, could be sex trafficking. We would again need to ask more questions. From my perspective, it sounds like there are so many indicators at this point. I highlighted most of the ones that are actually in the scenario. Well, as a service provider, at the Center for the Advancement of Human Rights, Florida State University, we assist with foreign victims of trafficking, both labor and sex trafficking. We assist mainly with their immigration status. At this point, I'm not really sure what kind of status this boy has. It could be that the passport is only a Haitian passport. Could be that that there was a visa and it expired. It could be that the child was smuggled into the U.S. At this point, we don't know. So I would need to look into more questions. Well, for victims of human trafficking, if they are brought, it doesn't matter exactly how they were brought, whether they were brought with visas, undocumented. When they are victims of human trafficking and have no status, then they are eligible for what is called a T visa. I'm not going to go into details. It's a very complex area of immigration law, but just know that there are service providers. The center is one of them. Legal Services of North Florida is another service provider in the area. We have an immigration clinic here also at FSU that also assist with immigration legal paperwork and any immigration relief that victims of crimes can qualify. But there's just so much more that needs to be addressed, right? And this is where it takes a whole village to really assist victims of human trafficking. We know that this child doesn't feel well. There is a way for a service provider, it doesn't have to come from law enforcement, that this child can, the service provider can request what is called a letter of eligibility through the Health and Human Services area. And with that letter of eligibility, that child is going to be able to get benefits, Medicaid, food stamps. Well, Jair, I'm going to contact you. Stack, I'm going to contact you. Charlie, I'm going to contact you. All of you really have a lot to play. Justin, probably I'm going to contact you. Why? Jair, this definitely there is child abuse, right? So Jair is going to start by investigating, well, yeah, there's definitely child abuse. Let me look to see if this meets the requirements for that DCF has. To certify, to confirm that this child is a victim of human trafficking. Let's find out what the best placement is going to be. Stack has a lot of different flexibility on ways that they can assist victims. They can also work together to refer probably other service providers that I may not know and that they regularly work with.
Yes.
CCYS, we have different people that we have worked with at CCYS to provide services, to provide immediate shelter. Then this whole group, Charlie, you've mentioned that you have access also to counseling services and many other services. So as you can see, it's not going to be just one agency, it's going to be many different agencies that are going to collaborate to address the different needs.
And let's, yes, sorry, Vania, go ahead.
All right. We also have our law enforcement partners, right? TPD has been investigating these kinds of cases. We have the sheriff's office that is really, really going to start implementing more of a human trafficking, should I call it unit, Robin? That they're going to
a unit would be right, yeah.
And so we have everyone that we have to contact to find out exactly, okay, what are going to be the next steps. And also, of course, empowering this child, assuring this child that he is in charge of also making decisions, but also, of course, considering the age, that there are certain expectations and certain roles that DCF is going to play and all the other organizations and agencies will be playing as well.
Yes, and Vania, you have already tagged several people on the panel, so let me turn it over to Jair. Would you like, you were the first on her list. Would you like to weigh in on this?
I'll try.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a lot to follow up on. No, Vania.
I know. I was like, you just need to sit back. Vania's got all of us. Vania's got this. We're just attendees. We're just attendees right now.
So I'll kind of switch roles. So if this case were to come into our Florida Abuse Hotline, when I were to initially make contact with Jair Clark, one, I would pull him completely out of the home to conduct that interview. We know just from this information presented, the caregiver, whatever role they may serve as, they're not obviously very protective of this child, nor is this other child in the home. So what we would want to do, not to isolate him, but just to get him to a safe space to even complete that initial interview, because I guarantee you there is a ton of information that we don't even have. So we would want to just build that rapport with Jair Clark, probably get him some food and just a safe space before I even start my investigation of, tell me what's going on, because with his papers, we don't know if those are valid paperwork, if that's something, as Vania said, he could have been smuggled in. We don't know the circumstances of how he got here. What matters is that he's here now, he's a child, and he needs some services. So we would like to get him comfortable and just let him, either if he's comfortable speaking with me, to tell me his story or ask some of those pertinent questions. As identified in the chat and by Vania, labor trafficking is one of the most prominent things that we see out of this story, but there are many other underlying maltreatments, to include sexual abuse, which could stem its whole other investigation of its own. We have the concern about the medical issues. We want to get those addressed. The headaches, he's concerned about his family, the deportation. There's so many issues within this. So just in general, the basic needs of getting that medical treatment, whether that's to the hospital, that is something with investigations that we can do. We don't need the parental figure. We don't know what this caregiver has. So we would complete what's called the human trafficking screening tool. That is a tool that is used by both the Department of Juvenile Justice and the Department of Children and Families anytime we have the either labor trafficking, maltreatment, or human trafficking in regards to the commercial sexual exploitation of children, CSEC. Even if the maltreatment does not get coded, we still ask these questions to our children that we have these concerns. Just from the intake and what we know about Jair Clark, he would absolutely be considered a verified victim of trafficking. So there's so many different options that we could provide, but the top three that come to mind are those medical services, partnering with IRC or with the undocumented refugee minors program that Department of Children and Families has, which is truly I want to say like the main office or primary location is down in South Florida. So I'm sure David is very familiar with them, but there's so much that as a partners we could do to work with this child, but just getting those basic needs, getting him out of that environment. And I know in the chat, they were saying the transition from acute to long-term. We're just in the beginning stages, but we would definitely accompany this child with those case management services as well, and probably send them on over to Charlie and segue to her.
All right, Charlie. Yeah. What are your thoughts if DCF called you and said, we have a child who looks like there's been a lot going on in terms of abuse, trauma, neglect, human trafficking. Where would you pick it up?
Okay, well, first I want to say that I love something that Jair said. And she said at first contact with this child, I'm just going to take him out to eat. I'm just going to talk to him and just get to know him. And I want to emphasize that with the Open Doors program, we are trauma informed and we are survivor centered. And basically what that means is we believe that treatment and care should put survivors in control. And that what's important is those of us who are providing services for survivors, that we also recognize it's important to listen to them, to believe them, and to respect their decisions regarding their treatment. And so because of that, oftentimes we want to go in and we want to say, okay, you need this, you need this, you need this, but we need to meet them where they're at. And so what that would look like is, after receiving that referral, is understanding who he is by having a conversation with him. And typically what would happen is we would staff this with our outreach team. And that includes a clinician and a survivor mentor and myself, the regional advocate. And typically two of us would have that first meeting. And the first thing we let everyone know is, hey, this is very informal. We're going to tell you a little bit about us, and we really want to know as much as you're willing to share. And what we do is we ask them after they just, shared what they were willing to share is, are there any goals? Is there just not even in a week from now? Is there anything you want to accomplish today? Is there anything you want to accomplish 3 days from now, 7 days from now, 7 months from now? Because guess what? You got a whole squad, and we are here to serve you and support you and help you and to move forward as you work towards those goals. And so I'll give you some examples. With this young man, chances are he's definitely going to need counseling. He is definitely going to need, chances are the department will ensure that he has a medical visit. Some other things that he's going to need is mental health counseling. Our clinician will provide free mental health services, and that includes individual counseling and group counseling. But I want to stress, this is offered and not forced. And that is because we recognize every survivor is not walking at the same pace. And so if it has been determined that sex trafficking is involved, we would offer individual counseling. If he declined it, that's really a great opportunity for that survivor mentor to use that relationship and that bond that she tends to build with our survivors. And I want to emphasize this, the reason the title is survivor mentor, it's because that survivor mentor has a unique lived experience that allows them to have a unique bond with each survivor. And so that survivor mentor can take some time to walk through what participating in counseling could look like for Jair Clark if he chooses not to do it. And we've had some very resistant clients change their minds. It just takes consistency and just being patient with them and not forcing it on them. And that's one of the things we would do, is offer individual counseling. I'm not going to dominate, but if, let's say Jair Clark decides, let's say it was determined that there were going to be criminal charges against those who were trafficking him. Well, that's another service that we can provide. We provide personal and court advocacy. So if Jair Clark wanted someone sitting by his side when he had his interview with law enforcement, not only could we transport him, we could accompany him. If Jair Clark wanted help writing his victim impact statement, that's where we step in. We can assist him with documenting that. So we are there to provide a lot of the wraparound services. I know Graciela mentioned, a lot of us, we don't offer shelter and housing. In this situation, because he's a minor, we know the department can take care of that. But those are just some of the services. Then I would link him to any necessary referrals that meet his needs. And it's just really getting to know them, creating an individualized wellness plan that is done through a collaborative process between the outreach team and Jair Clark. So it's just helping him to identify what goals he wants to work on, and then just being there by his side and supporting him as he works towards those goals.
And one of the things, thank you, Charlie and Jair, that's great. And one of the things I'd like to kind of throw in here a little bit too is there's a question in terms of sex trafficking, in that it almost could be, there was a threat to, if you told about the touching of his private parts, you'd be out on the street. So the exchange of sex for anything of value, I'm popping in with the lawyer, is something that can bring in the issue of sex trafficking as well. And that would bring your program in clearly. Now, one of the things I wanted to mention, and I'm almost thinking about you, David, is that if we were in Miami and Jair Clark only spoke Haitian Creole, we'd be okay. Here in Tallahassee, what would we do? One of the things we want to talk about are some of the gaps. We had a case of a busload of Haitian farm workers that crashed in an adjacent county. And I'm telling you, it was a struggle to get translators for us. And it's really important to, we went through that trying to figure out, how do you get an interpreter who understands the issue of human trafficking, is not colluding in any way with the people who are, driving that bus or in any way controlling the person. For example, that was that case. But how do we make sure we do that? And what would we do in this area? And then my second question was on the issue of housing. We just heard from Gwen, Justin, that it might be that you all at CCYS might also be able to provide local housing. So does somebody want to talk about the housing and somebody want to talk about interpretation or how you get appropriate services to people who don't speak English?
Well, I'll jump in. And when I read this scenario, I assumed English speaking, I assumed rapport. Obviously, there's a couple of things that with the narrative that everyone's kind of addressed this, but triangulating the narrative, building rapport, keeping the relationship, trying to figure out what is really happening is really important. As indicated, it's a child. This is a child, and thusly cannot consent to any of the work described or the services that we're offering. If they're going to engage case management, obviously, if there's anything that is clearly indicative of harm, then we would be reporting. So also the child has indicated they're a flight risk, and until we can confirm, we've found that sometimes just maintaining, as I think JR discussed and Charlie, just maintaining contact and triangulating what's going on so that the kid doesn't disappear in the wind, whether they themselves flee out of fear of repercussions or that they're removed. One thing I've noticed about individuals who are stuck in these situations is that oftentimes the traffickers, whether it's labor, sex, whatever, are willing to accept free stuff as long as it doesn't come at a cost. So something we do at our drop-in center, and I will get to the housing and I will get to shelter, to treehouse, but something we do explicitly is track meal service and resources distributed, like at our through our clothing closet. So if a kid shows up and they need fresh socks, fresh underwear, that's not a big deal because they're at risk or they're homeless to running around. But if somebody's showing up taking an absorbent amount of items with them, or if they're taking meals to go, and we know that they don't really have sustainable shelter or stable shelter, they might be couch surfing, you know, that is another documented piece of evidence that there might be other parties at play and trouble afoot. So everything we can do to triangulate the narrative, confirm the narrative without spooking them and making them run away is really important. One of the advantages of being on site is that we do have a direct shelter access. With this being a 14-year-old, they would be immediately referred probably for basic care to someplace else shelter, which is on site on the same campus. The parent or guardian would have to provide documentation that they are their legal guardian in order to check in. But in this case, as mentioned by Gwen, we do have a DCF licensed facility called Treehouse that specializes in human sex trafficking, not even labor trafficking, specifically sex trafficking. So we'd be pulling clinicians in and we'd be internally triangulating a way to serve. But I just want to go back to something initially. The over response is going to send people into more dangerous scenarios. And many of us have a tendency to fix as quickly as possible. That might actually push them into harm's way from some of the situations that I've witnessed firsthand. I'll pause there so as to not monopolize time.
Okay, well, thank you. And we can keep building on services as we go through the other scenarios as well. Would anyone like to quickly talk in on this language issue and what do you do? I got a comment back from Tanya who said, yeah, language barriers are an issue.
Hi, Robin and panelist team. I'll jump in on this. You know, the International Rescue Committee, we provide case management services for survivors of both sex trafficking and labor trafficking. Very often, labor trafficking survivors are foreign born, and so we do have a history of really reaching out to and serving individuals from other countries with other language needs. And you hit it on the nose, Robin, that was on my mind in terms of the language. And so in Miami, yes, there would be a lot more capacity to leverage in terms of community support. And in Tallahassee, probably not so much. And so what IRC would do is just tap into our own resources. We are part of a national and global, but also a national network of other IRC offices across the country. And all of us kind of collectively have a cadre of on-call interpreters that we can tap into. So we can leverage our own network to tap into Creole interpreters and other languages. We also, of course, can utilize telephonic interpretation, language line, and things like that. We have structured our programming and the budgets that we have to make sure that those very, very important costs are baked into the budgets, because it's something that comes up often enough, and we need to make sure that we have access to it when needed.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you for that. Any comments, Graciela? Do you have anything you would like to add before we move on there?
Yes, quickly. Sometimes, like this case, probably STAC wouldn't be the very first person that is being contacted. However, if we can help, sometimes I want you guys to think that how many questions this child has been answering, how many people they have seen, from the physicians to the nurse to Gerald to Charlie, and everyone with the best intention. Sometimes it doesn't make sense for us to keep asking more questions. We already, the partners are telling us. But if there is anything that we can do, for example, I was thinking, probably this child needs or wants to call his family. Can we help you guys to give a phone and a phone card or something? One thing that I think a lot that will be great for this child is to have his own food. All of us from immigrants, we want to have tortillas. I want to have tortillas. So if we can contribute with a gift card to go to a special store to get food for this child, probably this child, I don't need to see him, but I want to, help everyone else to help this child to feel, support. So that's
Great.
all.
And I think that's important too, because you raised so many great issues about how many times somebody is in front of a survivor, how many questions get asked, how you can just be there in that support role. Yes, we'll get the gift card. Yes, we'll figure out, we'll help you find housing. You can be the main contact. We can be that secondary tier of support. So, and that can happen throughout the community. So thank you for that. All right, everybody, ready to move to the second scenario? And I think, Charlie, you are going to help us with this one.
Correct. Okay, Lauren's story. I am a mom and worried about my teenage daughter, Sylvia's friend, Lauren. Sylvia told me that she is worried about Lauren, who is also a sophomore in high school and who rides her bus. Sylvia told me that when Lauren got on the bus last week, she had a new phone, new clothes, and was bragging about her new 25-year-old boyfriend. Lauren looked really happy about the relationship and told Sylvia that if she wanted to party, she could come with her, along with Lauren's younger sister and her new boyfriend on Friday night after the game. Sylvia said no, but then she didn't see Lauren for several days on the bus or at school. When she returned, Sylvia told me that Lauren had bruises on her arms and face. And when she asked Lauren about them, she laughed nervously and said she's just clumsy. And so there were, when I think about all of the warning signs in regards to identifying whether or not someone is a victim of trafficking, they're all there. So first, if the mom submitted this referral, we would find out, have you let Lauren know, or is Lauren aware that a referral has been submitted on her behalf? I would also find out if any reports have been made to the department, because that's always my first response when I'm dealing with a minor, is we're all mandatory reporters in the state of Florida. So it would probably be, I want to say UJR, but I know I'd have to make that call to the abuse hotline. But let's say that Lauren does accept services, and she is willing to participate in the Open Doors program. Once again, like I said, we are survivor-centered and trauma-informed. When we meet with Lauren, we would let her know that we are there as a support for her, and that the services we have, such as individual counseling, such as personal advocacy and court advocacy, they are all offered for her, but they are not forced. If Lauren would like to simply just meet with the survivor mentor once a week, we would let her know that that was an option. If Lauren does express that she wants individual counseling, what we would do is we would meet with her at a location that is convenient for Lauren. We would just really try to get to know her and know what her needs are, what her wants are. We could easily walk in and say, okay, we need you to stay away from the 25-year-olds. We need you to do this. We need you to change schools. But the fact is this, is that we have to, it's so hard for us, some of us, to understand and accept that that individual has to make those changes within, internally. We cannot make them for them. And so what I would do is definitely be coordinating with the department, whoever, if a case manager were to get involved, I would be coordinating with the department, because they tend to identify services that they want to put in place. And if our agency does provide those services, like I said, such as individual counseling, we can offer that. If Lauren is involved, like I said, in any criminal cases, we can assist with that. If there are any issues regarding Lauren in school and her educational needs, we can also ensure that that area, we basically serve as an advocate for that youth, and just ensuring that everyone who is on Lauren's team, such as her guardian ad litem, such as if the department is involved, such as the case manager, that we're attending MDT meetings on behalf of Lauren, so that we know what services are put in place, so that we can serve as a support in regards to those services.
Yeah.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Let me ask you a couple of things. First of all, just to clarify that MDT is multidisciplinary team meetings. I know we all love our acronyms, but let me also ask you this, and maybe this would be something connected to, and maybe you can pull in other things you might do. And I know this has happened to us. We have gotten calls on the stack line where we are not at all connected to the person who is being harmed. We are getting a call from a friend, or in this case, maybe from the mom, who has no idea what to do. And this is a friend of her daughter's. So she might call the hotline, or she might call us because she just heard about us by attending one of these programs. So that's a challenge too, because getting the word out to people of this is what trafficking could look like. Some of those indicators is the fact that she has the new phone, new clothes, an older boyfriend. Is that an absolute that this young girl, Lauren, is being sex trafficked? What do we want to say to that mom about some of the things that she's observing, and who would actually call the hotline? Does anybody want to talk about that?
Well, what I can say is that everything that you mentioned, we know that young victims of sex trafficking will often have different indicators. Some of those indicators are bruises or injuries that are unexplained. Some of those indicators are changes in appearance, and changes in appearance can be wearing more expensive clothing and more expensive jewelry. Another indicator is having a partner who is significantly older. So basically letting her know that her concerns are very justified. And the amazing thing about Open Doors is that we will work with them even if sex trafficking is suspected. It does not need to be verified. And so, like I said, if mom is willing to submit that referral to us and Lauren is willing to work with us, then we could proceed with services. But yeah, we would definitely let her know that all of these indicators are strong indicators of trafficking. And because we serve those who are suspected victims of trafficking, we'd be able to provide services.
Absolutely. Thank you. And both Graciela, Justin, and Vania have also talked about this. So Graciela or Justin, do you want to tell us what your thinking is? You mentioned the younger sister, Graciela, too.
Yeah, I am also concerned about the younger sister. I don't know what Lauren's age is, so I will need to check with Jair and talk to the mom about that we are mandatory reporters, and try to take this in a very calm way, I guess, with the mother. Sometimes people don't want to get involved and don't want to, so it could be probably anonymous call from her, or if she feels comfortable, I could make the call. But I am definitely concerned for all this, red flags, as we said, and the younger sister. Like, this is happening to Lauren. I'm just very concerned about the younger sister.
And we see sometimes, don't we, Graciela, that if one child is being sex trafficked by a predator, that predator will also look to other children in the family to do the same thing.
Right.
And it looked like, Justin, in your comments, you're saying something similar.
Oh, this is 100% grooming, 100% she's recruiting. This is a pretty common scenario that we've seen where even if they're older and there's no relationship, no boyfriend or significant other, they start showing up with their nails done, their hair done, new shoes. Then you ask some questions and you find out, bottle service is going on across town, and other behaviors, and you just kind of have to, again, triangulate, build the trust. We would probably, again, if there is confirmed, reportable items, it would be reported. And there's also a potential here to really do some assistance with some other advocates, namely high-risk victim unit at TPP. We've conducted some ununiformed visits, consultations, some observations, just to help, again, triangulate and understand what's going on. It's very subtle. It has led to some arrests. It has led to some interventions, and we're very careful with how we even discuss those incidents. So as to not lose trust with the youth. But yeah, there's definitely recruiting going on. And
Yeah.
I also want to take this chance to go to safety planning.
yeah,
All the time. We get if we get the call from Lauren, Sylvia's mom, then I will definitely take the opportunity to tell the mom about the risks, so then the mom can start watching also, what's going on with her kid, which is Sylvia, right? Teenage daughter, Sylvia's friend.
but to that point, Graciela, if I can, the safety plan is incredibly important, even within your own team. Before you present a plan, you've got to make sure that you have the beds available, that you have the space available, that you have the transportation available. Because if it's not, and the child or the survivor chooses to engage your services and you aren't able to provide what you said you were going to provide, you will lose that connection, and that person will be out the door.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Jair, I'm thinking about you and kind of with your PACE hat on. So you have, thankfully, you have Sylvia, who's a classmate of Lauren, talking to her mom, which is great. So there's a mom-daughter open line of communication. And Sylvia could be a lifeline to help Lauren to get safety. And I'm thinking about other stories I've heard where friends do see something that none of the adults around them see. The friend sees it. So how do we work with youth so that they understand, like, this is what trafficking might look like? This is a concern. I'm concerned about my friend, kind of bystander or friends helping friends. Do you work with girls at PACE on that, or have any other thoughts on how we kind of do that prevention work and maybe quicker intervention?
Oh, absolutely. Just speaking with Sylvia, from the good thing is that I don't know that it it's mentioned that she was on the bus or at school. So one of the a green flag to say is that Lauren is still going to school. Even if she missed a few days, she has still, the attendance is there. So one, that's a visible set of eyes within the community. We know that she's at least getting that one meal, and we may have a place to be able to make contact with her, because we don't know where she's staying. We don't know who she's with. So with her being at that school, we can either work with Sylvia and her mom to set up, if Lauren were to come back to their home, or if we just make contact with her at school. Speaking on the education point, we would definitely give Sylvia the background about those red flags. I know that with STAC, there has been the social media training that Marina has done before. We could get information about Lauren's social media, just to give those on the other side, the red flags and those risk factors that we see, just making sure Sylvia has this knowledge for herself as well as her friends, because she's obviously concerned about Lauren, but also giving that education to mom. Within Leon County Schools, I know as a part of BBCAT, they have been working to put in that primary education in regards to risk factors of trafficking. As Justin said, that grooming, it doesn't always necessarily start off as immediately a trafficking. That new phone, those new clothes, that could just be the signs of grooming prior to any trafficking incidents occurring. So here at PACE, and just in general with Leon County Schools, that primary education on that social media with parents and children is absolutely, across Florida, honestly, Department of Education.
Yeah, exactly. And that's great. And if you can believe it, it's 11 minutes after 2. And I know we want to get to the third scenario. Does anybody have any other comments, or does anybody who is attending, any of our attendees, want to mention things that are going on in your community for any of these scenarios? If you want to weigh in and share your thoughts, we're really would be grateful for you to do that in the chat. I know some people have come in the chat, and it's great to hear your perspective. Somebody, by the way, mentioned that they are opening a home. Carolyn, would love to know where you're from, and we can help connect you. If you're in this area, you can contact us. I'll put my number in there, or my name and email. But if you're in another area of the state, let's get you connected to people there locally if you're opening up and you want to figure out how to open up a safe home. All right, well, let's go to the next scenario then and talk about Brittany. And David, you were going to help us with this one.
Sure thing. This is Brittany's story. I'm from a very small town in Florida. I'm 35 years old, and I was sex trafficked by gangs when I was younger. Over the years, when I couldn't find a place to stay, I traded sex for food and shelter, and sometimes drugs. I have 2 kids, 9-year-old twins, but DCF took them from me and put them in foster care. I want to be a good parent, but it is hard because I didn't finish high school. I haven't had a steady job in years, and I can't even get an apartment because it is too expensive. Now I am dating Dave, and we work together. I know life is hard, but he makes it easier for both of us by finding clients. We make a good living, but I'm getting tired of this life, and I want my kids back. I love Dave, and I'm afraid that he's going to be upset and hurt me again if I tell him that I don't want to do this anymore, because he is the only one that has been there for me. I know I need help to have a clean life, but nothing has worked before. The police caught me with a client and arrested me, not the client. It looks like I'm in real trouble because this is my 3rd arrest. Okay, there is a lot to unpack here. So there are several things that I wanted to highlight. It's notable that this individual has survived sex trafficking before. She has experienced sex trafficking. She is in this current situation with Dave, where there is clearly prostitution, and it really appears that there's also force and coercion. She does say, I'm getting tired of this life. I want my kids back, but I'm afraid. I love Dave, and I am afraid that he's going to be upset and hurt me again. So right there are signs of force and coercion, or at least psychological coercion. And so for that reason, this really does look like a pretty clear case of sex trafficking. And another thing to note, which I'll actually touch on in a minute, but the point at the end that she has experienced legal trouble, right? She's been arrested. This is her third arrest. And so that just further complicates her story and her ability, her sense of ability to really get out of this situation. If IRC were to come across this case, this individual, like many of the other panelists have said, we would really first start with a very in-depth assessment and really find out as much as we can about the situation, but really do so in a very trauma-informed way, in a very client-centered way, being very open and listening to her story and listening to what her needs are. And in the spirit of client-centered services, we would she would take the lead in developing an individualized service plan to determine what she needs and what she wants. What are her short-term goals? What are her long-term goals? Very likely, what could come of this is IRC helping her and with the support of partners, identifying housing or emergency shelter, really supporting her with the very basic and essential needs such as food and clothing and transportation. It is, if she wants, she may want to pursue substance abuse treatment. And so if that is the case, and we would help refer her to a substance abuse treatment facility. But again, it really, in the spirit of client-centered services, we would follow her lead. It looks like she also has legal needs. And so we would refer her for legal services to help her expunge those prostitution records that she may be carrying with her. Other possibilities of things that she may want our help with is securing documentation if that's needed. For example, just the Florida ID or driver's license. We will help her apply for benefits if she is eligible. And it really looks like she didn't finish high school. And so, and it sounds like she really wants to, get out of the cycle that she's in and this life, and she wants to potentially explore further her education, right? And so we can refer her to vocational trainings, potentially a GED program, and really just listen to her and walk with her and empower her all along the way to support her in whatever her needs are in terms of really navigating all of these complex systems that she needs to navigate and becoming independent and successful.
David, this also strikes me, and Graciela, I'd ask you too, this strikes me as the example of an instance where when we got it, if we got this call into STAC or you got it into IRC, that Graciela and Christina would have been immediately talking with one another about this, along with some of our partners of legal services or the people at the Hope community, where, by the way, and this might be a tip for everybody if you haven't done it already, I mean, we've been really intentional about doing training at all of the service provider agencies where our clients are likely to seek services, or doing co-training with those entities. So we have trained at and with Disc Village for the substance abuse issues, when legal services, we've done lots of co-trainings with them. So it's been one of those ways to build strong relationships, so we each know what the other is doing. But Graciela, this to me sounds like a case where you and the IRC would have immediately been thinking, what can we do? And sometimes it needs two advocates to be doing all the things. And she might ask us one time for some things, and then she might go away and not come back for a couple of months too.
Yeah, and David, you just say everything, so I don't know what else to add. But one thing that probably I would kind of guide or assist, sometimes yes, people have short-term goals or long-term goals, and sometimes they might not be realistic. So what we need to kind of figure out is, so you have to do this and this and that in order to get this. So let's put in more to the long term, or, you know, we help with that, because it comes very frustrating for anyone that you're working towards something and you think you're going to get it earlier than what you get it, and then, you know, that sometimes those you know, hits in your life take you down, and we don't want that. Definitely, I'm sure that Miami has so much more than we have here. But absolutely, I will also, probably the only thing that I would add is, and I don't ask clients to call and talk to the case management of the plan foster home, but I facilitate that call. Sometimes it's hard to get the case manager, and so I will facilitate either an email or with the client there, you know, calling and see what is the plan for this woman to get back the kids. Everything else that you said is, you know, completely right on target. And again, we cannot work. I couldn't do that by myself. There's no way that I can do it by myself.
Absolutely.
So I will need a partnership with DCF to see, you know, what was the plan, what happened, how can we work and keep, you know, talking with this woman, having what she needs. And again, like you said, if she needs, if she wants the substance use treatment, that's definitely something that we can, you know, explore in there. Yes,
Yeah.
Vania?
Yes, Vanya.
I agree with everything that everyone has contributed. I think that in this case it's very important to start doing a lot of the safety planning, right, and addressing some of the issues. There are lots. It looks like at so many different levels the system really has failed her. She was trafficked early in her life. It looks like, you know, the children were taken away. She's she's addicted to drugs. It looks like she is not in a safe place either, because even though quote unquote this guy is working with her, they're working together, but obviously she is afraid of him. So empowering her and explaining all the different services, and in this case I would definitely try to partner with an organization like Legal Services of North Florida, for example, that would be able to, and I would explain this to her because she's the one that's going to have to make that decision, right? Someone is not going to make a decision until they are really ready for this. We've seen this in sex trafficking cases, labor trafficking cases, in victims of domestic violence. They really have to make that decision. So making sure that she understands that if someone hurts her, that she can get a restraining order against that person, that she can call law enforcement if there is some kind of domestic violence situation, that Legal Services of North Florida can start working with her to look at the issues of getting her children back, of looking at those charges that she's had in the past, because they are connected with the sex trafficking situation that she has been forced into. So all of that, but really empowering her, just providing her with the information, and walking along the way, but safety planning and making sure that she is the one that is also making those decisions and not being forced upon her, not letting her know, oh, this is what I think is the best for you. No, this is what's available, and let her decide what she needs at that time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And while we transition to Graciela, I'd like to highlight Gwen's comment about the guardian ad litem working with the twins, and the fact that if she wants to move forward, I'd also add in the public defender's office, so they understand what's going on. If someone is being forced, and there clearly are levels of force and coercion here, and she's arrested, that arrest not just should be expunged later, which it absolutely should, David. And I'm thinking about the Justice Restoration Center and Brent Woody, who has been on our Third Friday programs and all the great work he does, so we can get her record cleared, but she's going to need help right away because there's a pending arrest.
Yeah.
And so what knowledge and understanding does your local public defender's office have around this issue? Have you done training there? If you're a local advocate, do you have contact and understanding? We're really lucky here with Jessica Yuri, who gets that issue. She is our public defender, and we probably would be able to make sure that, you know, the connection was made so they understood this as a survivor. And even also with our state attorney's office, there should be some sort of understanding. They don't want to prosecute victims and shouldn't want to ever, right? If they know that's the case. So there's intervention in the justice system. This is all work we all need to be doing right away and now, so that we have those connections. Graciela.
Just quickly, Vania is completely right. Safety planning, that will change too. It's evolving. So we talk about safety planning at this point, and then there is other, I guess, challenges or not challenges. So safety planning is going to be evolving, and always talking about that. That's what we need to do.
And we also have this idea, and we only have a couple minutes, so I'm sorry, Jair, to do this, but DCF took her kids. This could be a long road. What would happen if someone say this was a case with Stack, and then contacted you and said, what do we need to do? What should happen? What could happen?
I think DCF is in the tough position that mom, being the adult, we have to secure the safety of the children, but also being survivor centered and keeping in mind that she is a victim in her own right. We would, at least if she were to be able to be sober to complete those supervised visits, that's one of the primary things we would want to start with. Empower her in that right of having those supervised visits, whether that's at the visitation center, with a guardian ad litem, with an advocate. She has so many options with all of her team members at this point. I would say start there, because she has very obviously said, I want to get my kids back. So let's just start with the visits to facilitate that, and let those children know as well that their mom is still there. She is always going to be mom, no matter what the system says. They're 9, they're not babies. They have this established relationship with her. So giving her something to continue to look forward to, and that'll assist with that safety planning and that lifestyle, the milestones they were saying. So I would say just starting there with those visits. I'm sure there are different court-ordered tasks that are recommended or requested, including the substance misuse and the housing and the shelter. So just primary, because of time, I would say if she were in a place to safely be able to have those visits, we would start there.
And thank you, Marquina. She's reacting to your comment and saying being a case manager doesn't just mean child safety, it means advocating for our parents when they make those necessary changes. And as you said, Jair, that mom is also a victim. Many comments coming in now. How do we as villagers who aim to help best coordinate so as not to overwhelm these survivors, set their priorities and choices when they heal? How do we relearn this in a new way? Connie, thank you. It is, this can be a lot of stuff going at full steam to a survivor, and it's really a one step at a time, letting that survivor know that we're all locked arms with her moving forward. And right now at 2:29 on a Friday afternoon, I will have to say, that is our last comment we're able to share with you. Heartfelt thanks to all of you brilliant panelists. Thank you. Thank you to all of you for attending. We appreciate the discussion and your insights and thoughts. And we'll say bye and have a great weekend.